All right. Eminem, big shout out to Eminem. I keep telling people, I really appreciate Death of Slim Shady, excuse me. The Death of Slim Shady was dropped in June, if I'm not mistaken. Those first 8 songs on there, it's an incredible run, right? And, you know, like, even just small things. Sometimes I'm walking down the street and I'll just be sitting around and I'll be like, Marshall, he's the Antichrist. He was like dice. 1 second applause for Antichrist. It's just quintessential Eminem, and I find quintessential Eminem always entertaining, right? There's another line on that album. How's that line go that I love? When he's like, on the song Lucifer, he says, my followers think I don't struggle no more. That's a joke. Bitch, the fucking elevator in my mansion's broke. I have to walk like half a block to get a can of Coke. 1 second applause. That line's always so funny. So, but Eminem's he's outside. He's really outside. He's really outside right now. And I really appreciate the project. I think it's really good. Now, definitely the first 8 songs are really good. But this campaign season is bringing out all the stars, especially on the blue team. They're bringing out superstars on the blue team. And Michigan is one of those places that is a swing state. We just had Dr. Jill Stein on this channel. We had a conversation about the Green Party platform, why it seems like they position their arguments against the blue team, which feeds into this idea that they're a spoiler for the blue team. She answered the question. Check it out if you want to see her perspective on that. But Michigan is one of those states where Jill Stein is polling greater than the margin of victory between Kamala and Trump, right? So this similar situation happened in 2016 with Hillary and Trump, right? And so Hillary didn't even go to Michigan to campaign. She didn't even show up. I think she thought that state was so in the bag that she decided to sit that one out, right? That didn't work out well for her at all, by the way. Okay, so now people are looking at Jill Stein as potentially being a spoiler in Michigan because that state is so close. Now, Michigan has a big Muslim population, a very active, very organized Muslim population, and they firmly are against all the actions of the blue team and the red team when it comes to what's happening in Israel and Gaza and Lebanon and what seems to be an expanding war in the Middle East. They're completely against all that, right? So, and Jill Stein really speaks to that demographic because the Green Party is the anti-war party, right? So that's part of where that margin of error really is living, or at least where Jill Stein is polling. A lot of support from the Muslim community and the Arab community in Michigan. So in my opinion, to help combat that, Kamala, Vice President Harris, has, during her recent rally yesterday, she had a rally yesterday in Michigan, and she brought out Eminem. Let's take a look and see what Eminem had to say.
And cut the crap. I shouldn't have to rhyme these words in the...
Em always just dresses like a regular dude, doesn't he? Like, he keeps that blue collar, the wardrobe tight. You know what I mean? Khaki jacket, khaki dad hat, khaki granddad hat. 1 second applause for Eminem, the granddad. He approaches his music in a very blue collar fashion too. I've had people who record with him tell me how he gets up every day, goes to the studio from 9 to 5 basically, then comes home and spends time with his kids. And so that is so Michigan. That is so what people think about when we think about Michigan. And so this is Kamala's pulling out the big guns, trying to relate to the people on the ground in a crucial swing state.
Detroit! What up, though? So look, I wrote down a few things I wanted to say. I love you too. Thank you. I'm here tonight for a couple of important reasons. As most of you know, the city of Detroit and the whole state of Michigan mean a lot to me. And going into this election, the spotlight is on us more than ever, and I think it's important to use your voice. So I'm encouraging everybody to get out and vote, please. I also think that people shouldn't be afraid to express their opinions. And I don't think anyone wants an America where people are worried about retribution or what people will do if you make your opinion known.
Now, that's a direct shot at Trump. Trump has been threatening the media or threatening pretty much anyone who disagrees with him in a lot of his campaign speeches and recent interviews. So that is definitely a shot at Trump without saying Trump's name.
I think Vice President Harris supports a future for this country where these freedoms and many others will be protected and upheld. And here to tell you much more about that, President Barack Obama.
Barry-O. Don't sleep on Barry-O. Don't sleep on Barry-O. So that's Eminem's very brief comments yesterday during the Kamala Harris, the Harris Waltz rally in Michigan. And it really jumped out to me for a number of reasons. One, obviously Michigan is very critical in this election cycle. Two, Trump and Eminem, or at least Eminem has been very critical of Trump. And perhaps his biggest, I don't want to say his biggest, but one of his more recent, perhaps the only time he's truly ever jeopardized his audience was when he dissed Trump during the BET Cypher. I think that was 2015, 14, maybe. Maybe it was later. Maybe it was 16 or 17. But he did a BET Cypher where he dissed Trump. We covered it on this channel. And, you know, he drew a line in the sand between his audience and Trump. And their overlap, like the Venn diagram between Eminem's audience and the Trump voter base is basically a circle. I say that in jest, but it's basically a circle. And there's a population heat map that the New York Times ran on 100 different musicians. It's showing where most of their streams were coming from. And Eminem's was majority of was in red states, red places, right? And so that album, Revival, was his, I think at this point, it's still his lowest performing first week release. And so M had to walk back those statements in a series of interviews, at least one interview. I think it was Rolling Stone, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it's Billboard. He says he doesn't want people to get, to learn the hard way about the repercussions of supporting Trump. You know, he said that his fans didn't deserve that. And so he walked it back. So since then, he hasn't spent a whole lot of time talking about politics. He hasn't. You know, we've seen him do this with, you know, Bill Clinton earlier in his career. We saw Mosh with Bush. You know, he's always generally got something to say about politics, to one degree or another. And after he did the BET thing, I don't think we've seen a whole lot of Eminem reminding people about his opposition to Trump. I don't think we have. And this conversation here is another example, right? Because he doesn't say Trump. And Eminem is clearly a free speech person, And he used that framing to acknowledge Vice President Harris without saying, oh, by the way, Trump is also saying that he likes free speech when it's good for him, but he don't like it when it's bad for him, right? So this is a moment, and we'll see how well it resonates in the polls in the next week. I guess week and a half or so is when the election is. We will learn soon whether or not this makes a difference, but this is huge. So the Kamala Harris campaign has Taylor Swift, and now they have Eminem, along with everyone else, but those two have just crazy engaged audiences. I'm not sure if this will change people's minds necessarily, but I do know it's a very big deal for him to actually endorse Kamala Harris at a rally, especially considering how he fractured his audience by drawing a line again in the sand between his audience and Trump. And Trump, to his credit, was smart enough not to respond publicly at that point in time around Eminem. Because Eminem is a troll master. Now, two things have happened in response, right? The right wing is not happy with Marshall once again. Okay. So here's a story that DX ran, right? And so here's a couple of a couple of responses, right? This one here says, is a response to the TMZ article. It says, Autism Capital says, no surprises there, right? This is the same guy who rapped about unaliving homosexuals with a chainsaw, Vicodin, chopping up his wife in front of his daughter, his disdain of his poor white trash audience, and being banged by a bisexual pedo named Ken Kniff from Connecticut, and he's supporting Kamala. Right. It feels very disingenuous because I think people like people when they like them, and then when people don't like them, they are all of a sudden critical. Or when they start showing support to someone that they're in opposition to, that's when the criticisms really start to rain in, right? And then here's Elon Musk right after that. Yet another Diddy party participant. Diddy party participant. Now, I can't speak on whether or not M has been to a Diddy party. You know, I think that M's been around since the 90s. And if I'm not mistaken, he's been sober since 2008, 9. So maybe he has been to some Diddy parties. But since M went sober, he doesn't even really go outside. You know, he'll show up to a Lions game, maybe a Super Bowl. He'll definitely go on tour. He'll do some shows. But generally speaking, he is 9 to 5 in it, wakes up, takes care of his kids, goes to the studio 8 hours, and then he comes home and takes care of his kids. And he's at one point in time, he was running nearly a marathon a day. Okay, so a lot of that was, in my opinion, him shifting one addiction to another, running being that addiction, and then his focus on family, raising 3 daughters. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that Eminem has been to a Diddy party since the Bush administration, if anything, if ever. But this is, you know, the spin that's coming from the other side of it. And the other thing that's actually pretty relevant, at least to this point that Elon is trying to make, is that Eminem is very critical of Diddy on the death of Slim Shady. He's got a lot of Diddy jokes, a lot of Diddy criticisms on that project. So, you know, we'll see how well this resonates on the ground with the people in Michigan on an electoral level. And we at least have a glimpse of how it's resonating online with right-wing reactors, at least to a degree, because Eminem has been in this situation before with Trump, and his audience was not happy with him. Okay, so let me know what you guys think about this. I think this is a touch point as we lead into the election, or election day, excuse me. My name is Justin Hunt. Like, subscribe to the channel, follow at The Company Man on everything. It's all happening.
Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. The mathematical breakdown of this mighty game of rap we in. It's boom bapping. Systematical culture views us radical, it's all happening. Shaking hands and dapping it. Life through the lens of hip hop, from trip hop to yes, y'all, you don't stop, you don't stop. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening. Justin Hunt is here, it's all happening. It's all happening, yes, it's all happening.